Our story begins with Cam. Cam grew up with his father in a simple village, and from a young age, he lived among elephants in the forest, so much so that his father used to take him to school using his elephant friend. Over time, Cam grew to love elephants like his own siblings, because his entire village raised and cared for them. After many years, we discover that Cam's elephant friend had a baby elephant, and Cam played with it all the time. But one day, a group of illegal poachers snuck into the forest and wanted to kidnap the baby elephant. Its mother tried to defend it, and unfortunately, one of the poachers shot her and escaped. In the end, the baby elephant's mother died from her wounds, and all the villagers mourned her and offered condolences in deep sorrow. But from that day on, Cam knew he had to become strong to protect the elephants from poachers, and he began training in the martial art of Muay Thai to defend his father and his elephant friend from all harm. After a short while, Cam and his father took the adult and baby elephants to a celebration in the city. At first, Cam's father said he would take the adult elephant to the vet. Of course, Cam listened to his father and took the baby elephant to play with it. Here, we learn that the vet turned out to be one of the gang stealing elephants, because as soon as the adult elephant saw him with his friends, it knew he was the one who killed its mate and started attacking. Even Cam's father discovered the secret and was about to expose them to everyone, so the doctor shot him. From here, the elephant went crazy and started attacking the gang to avenge Cam's father. They all ran in terror, and the place turned into chaos. Meanwhile, Cam was busy at the celebration, watching a boxing match, and didn't notice that the baby elephant started playing with the children and wandered away from him, to the point that the gang lured it and kidnapped it. In the end, Cam noticed that the elephant wasn't next to him, and when he started looking for it, he accidentally found out that his father had been shot and ordered them to save the elephants at all costs. So Cam ran at full speed to catch them, but he arrived late, and the gang kidnapped both the adult and baby elephants and escaped in seconds. The next day, the villagers gathered in sorrow because the elephants had been kidnapped, but fortunately, Cam's father healed from his wounds and survived. Then the events shift to a house full of rich people. Suddenly, Cam broke down the doors with his knee and started eliminating the guards mercilessly. Here, we learn that this is the house of the vet who kidnapped the elephants, and Cam came to find out their location. At first, Cam crushed the fighters who stood in his way using his legendary Muay Thai skills and learned from the doctor that he had sent the elephants to Australia to be sold at an auction. So Cam became extremely angry and escaped before the gang members could surround him. Then he took a boat and sped off at full speed. Of course, the criminals didn't leave him alone and chased him fiercely, even bringing an armed helicopter. But smart Cam outsmarted them and crashed their boat into the helicopter and escaped with extreme difficulty. Here, the events shift to Sydney, Australia, and we meet Officer Mark. Mark is a young Thai man, but he lives in Australia, and reporters were filming him because he's a skilled officer with a good reputation. But suddenly, Mark found out that a theft was happening and rushed to stop it. As soon as he arrived at the crime scene, he discovered that the thief was his neighbor, so he started talking to him to calm him down. Then he quickly outsmarted him and arrested him, but when he was away from the press and cameras, he asked him to completely abandon crime and released him. After that, he met Madame Rose. Rose is a criminal in a Chinese mafia gang, and she was angry because the gang leader yelled at her and was not pleased with her. So her assistant told her to buy a group of rare elephants to give him as a gift. At that time, Cam finally arrived in Australia to start searching for his two elephant friends, and as soon as he left the airport, he hired a taxi and asked him to go to the elephant auction, but he didn't know that the taxi driver was a dangerous criminal on the run from the police. That's why Officer Mark and his assistant started chasing them through the city streets. At first, the criminal sped off at full speed and was about to escape, so Officer Mark chased him with a police car and managed to corner him with the help of another officer. Of course, the criminal refused to surrender and took Cam hostage to threaten him with a weapon, but Cam waited for the right opportunity to break his arm. Here, an undercover officer named Vince shot the criminal and made Cam run in fear. Then he ordered Mark to arrest him, and unfortunately, even though Cam used his physical fitness to escape, Officer Mark and his assistant threatened him with a weapon and eventually caught him. When Cam got into the police car, he accidentally discovered that Mark was Thai like him and told him about the stolen elephants, so Mark promised to help him find them as soon as possible. Here, Mark got out of the car to talk to his fiancée, but by chance, Cam noticed Johnny, one of the criminals who kidnapped the elephants. So he started shouting and asked to get out of the car, but Mark's assistant prevented him, so he became very angry and escaped from the car. Of course, Mark was shocked and started chasing him. Cam cut the rope on his hands and chased Johnny until he found him, but Johnny ignored him and sent his followers to finish him off. So Cam easily crushed them, and before he continued on his way, a girl warned him about Johnny and his gang, but he didn't listen to her. From here, Cam searched all the streets and threatened the criminals he met to find out Johnny's location, who was completing a forbidden deal in his secret hideout. but suddenly Cam stormed the place and spoiled the deal. At first, Johnny went crazy because Cam ruined all his plans and ordered his followers to finish him off, but Cam is a professional Muay Thai master and learned the secrets of martial arts from his father. Here, we learn that Johnny called all the gang members in the city because they started arriving from everywhere and had glass weapons to break on Cam's head, but he dodged them with lightning speed and started separating them and finishing them off one by one because there were too many of them and he couldn't fight them at the same time. Moreover, a dangerous fighter appeared on a motorcycle and was about to kill Cam, but Cam's reaction was unparalleled and he managed to outsmart him in the end, but it was useless because the criminals were countless and kept attacking him from all directions until he escaped from them to the top of the building. Here, a criminal riding an armored quad bike attacked at full speed, so Cam dodged it and jumped into the air at the last moment, crashing it into the glass to save his life. After the battle ended, Cam lost consciousness from exhaustion, but fortunately, PLA, the girl who had warned him before, found him in the street and saved him. She also took him to her house to protect him from the police, but as soon as she went down to get food, Cam woke up from the coma and didn't know where he was. Meanwhile, Officer Mark and his assistant arrived at PLA's house because her neighbor had reported her and revealed that Cam was hiding in the house, but he escaped at the last moment, and Mark couldn't catch him. Then he went to meet Officer Vince, who had shot Cam before, and informed him of what happened. Vince betrayed him and killed his friend and revealed that he was a corrupt officer working with the elephant-stealing gang. Of course, Mark was shocked by what happened, but he gathered his strength and escaped from the corrupt officers with difficulty. After a while, he received a call from his fiancée and learned that Vince and his followers had kidnapped her, so he was forced to surrender against his will. Meanwhile, PLA was escaping from Vince's corrupt officers because she knew secrets about the gang, but fortunately, Cam appeared at the last moment and saved her to repay her kindness. So PLA told him her story and informed him that Johnny was working with a dangerous gang that steals rare animals and sells them on the black market. As soon as Cam learned the gang's hideout from PLA, he set off to finish off Johnny and save his elephant friends. At first, Cam entered the first floor of the gang's building and surprised the guards with his superhuman strength and speed because they couldn't control him. Then he ascended to the second floor easily. Here, the guards surrounded Cam because there were many of them, but he used a set of secret Muay Thai techniques and mercilessly crushed them until he ascended to the third floor and started eliminating anyone who stood in his way because he wanted to reach his elephant friends no matter the cost. After long minutes of fighting, Cam reached the last floor, but as soon as he entered, he was surprised by Johnny and noticed that rich people were sitting and eating. So Johnny insulted him and threw the baby elephant's bell at him. Of course, Cam was shocked because he thought the baby elephant was dead, and Johnny took advantage of his sorrow and attacked him fiercely. So Cam wrapped the elephant's bell around his hand and gathered his strength. Then he taught Johnny a lesson and humiliated him in front of everyone. He also gave his followers a good beating and started searching the building. Here, Cam learned that this gang steals rare animals and sells them to the rich to eat them. So he continued fighting until he accidentally discovered that Officer Mark was imprisoned. So he rescued him and rested with him in the dark, but he felt something strange touching him, and when he looked behind him, he found that the baby elephant was still alive. So he felt great happiness and took it out of its cage. After that, Cam, Mark, and the elephant escaped from the gang's building without anyone noticing them. The next day, Mark took Cam and went to hide at a monk friend's place, away from the eyes of the police. And when they went out to the city to buy food, they were greatly shocked when they returned to the monk's place and found that the entire place was on fire. Moreover, a Brazilian capoeira fighter appeared to fight Cam. Here, we learn that all of this was a trap set by Vince and the gang to finish off Cam and Mark because they would expose their secrets. Unfortunately, Cam was shocked by the strength of his opponent because he used head movements in the fight, and his physical fitness was unmatched. But over time, Cam was able to identify his weakness and controlled him with great difficulty. But before he rested, he was surprised by a skilled swordsman and began to dodge his attacks even though he was extremely tired. So Sam and Ray took advantage of Cam's weakness and pressured him more and more, but Cam refused to surrender and took 2 iron sticks and prepared to defend himself. Indeed, Cam executed his plan and miraculously defeated the samurai fighter, and when he tried to rest after the fight, a huge hand broke the glass and grabbed him by the neck without warning. Here, we learn that Vince and the gang hired the world's largest fighter to finish off Cam, who was surprised by his enormous size. Unfortunately, no matter how much Cam tried to hit the huge fighter, he was not affected and was crushed until he fell to the ground. But before he finished him off, he heard police cars, so he fled the scene. In the end, Mark arrived to rescue him after the fight ended. Mark advised Cam to surrender to the police, but Cam didn't listen to him and waited until Mark fell asleep and took the baby elephant to confront Vince and Rose's gang because they had kidnapped the adult elephant. Indeed, Cam finally reached the gang's headquarters. From the beginning of the battle, Cam dominated his his enemies and carved his way into the building, but he was surprised that Vince threatened him with a weapon and was about to finish him off, but suddenly Mark appeared and shot Vince in the shoulder so Cam could continue on his way. After Cam left, Mark kept hitting Vince because he was a traitorous officer. At that time, Cam reached Rose with the baby elephant, but he was shocked by what he saw and couldn't believe his eyes because Rose had killed the adult elephant and made its tusks into gold-covered decorations. Unfortunately, Cam was frozen in place as soon as he discovered the bitter truth and began to remember the old days when he played with the elephant and how much he loved it like his own brother. Moreover, the criminals gathered around him like dogs and started beating him, but Cam woke up again as soon as he saw his blood and knew that he had to fight with all his might to get justice for his elephant friend. Indeed, Cam turned into a destructive fighting machine and unleashed his anger on the criminals to the point that he started breaking their bones with his bare hands and without using any weapons. He was also unaffected by their blows. After long minutes of fighting, Cam finished off more than 100 guards and finally reached Rose, but suddenly the huge fighter who had tried to kill him before appeared again, but this time Cam had studied his movements and hit him in the head because that was his only weak point. As soon as Cam was about to win the battle, Rose attacked him with her weapon and her husband arrived with 3 giant fighters to challenge Cam and completely destroy him. Moreover, the huge fighter threw him onto the skeleton of his elephant friend. Here, Cam did the unexpected because he took 2 huge bones and used them as a deadly weapon because elephant bones are tougher than iron. Indeed, Cam's plan succeeded, and he mercilessly crushed Rose's followers, and when the bones broke, he used them as knives to slice the criminals one by one and left them unable to move. Then he hit the huge fighter with his knee in the back, knocking him unconscious. Rose tried to escape in the helicopter, but Cam stopped her in her tracks and finished off her husband. So Rose outsmarted him and swung on the helicopter rope. Of course, Cam refused to let her escape and jumped from the top of the building with a flying knee, completely finishing her off, but he survived because he fell between the tusks of his elephant friend. In the end, Cam decided to return to his father and felt great happiness because the baby elephant was still alive. This was a summary of the movie.